the Pakistan team decided impromptu to do a victory lap. And before you realize what was actually happening, you could see the entire ground get to its feet and applauding the Pakistani team. People talk about the knowledgeable Chennai crowd, right? I mean, they've always been spectators who've not been very partisan, who've appreciated good cricket irrespective of who it is coming from. That was really a goosebump inducing moment.
We began this season of random cricket photos that make my guests happy with a guest who has been synonymous with the initial success and razzmatazz of the Indian Premier League, Mr. Joy Bhattacharya. Now, as we come close to the end of the season, we have with us another gentleman who has had a long association with the league. In fact, very recently, he has rejoined the team that he has had great success with in the past. And well, with just about a couple of months left for the next edition of IPL, I think this is the perfect time to have a chat with Srinath Bhashyam, who recently took over as the general manager of the IPL franchisee Sunrisers Hyderabad and is ready to make his Random Cricket Photos podcast debut today. So, welcome to the podcast, Srinath. Warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Amit. Just glad to be on your podcast.
So, Srinath, before you moved back to Hyderabad, you were associated with Delhi Capitals in the IPL 2020. And we'll come to that fantastic campaign that you were a part of where Delhi made it to the finals for the first time. But before that, as part of the entire setup that actually did it, just tell us how big was the challenge in 2020 to have the IPL? Not just for you, but the players, the organizers, everybody. Give us a sense of what it was like to have such a massive tournament in such times and what kind of an impact it had on those involved, especially the players.
Absolutely, Amit. I think the world has been through a lot over the last 8 to 9 months, and that would be an understatement. We're going through times which are fairly unprecedented, and there are things larger than cricket at play here. So, when the tournament got postponed in April, uh, we were really uncertain about how things were going to pan out from a standpoint of how the pandemic is going to play out. So from that stage to actually getting to a stage where there was a possibility of hosting the tournament and actually moving lock, stock, and barrel to another country altogether and successfully hosting a tournament of this scale, I think just kudos to everybody involved, the BCCI, the IPL, and also all the teams involved, all the franchises involved in making sure that the IPL went ahead without any hiccups. I think that was fabulous. And just from a logistical standpoint, I think it was quite a challenge to say the least because you had these biosecure bubbles that you had to be a part of, and it's like you're operating out of constrained spaces. And it was quite a challenge mentally, to be very honest. But I think that everybody really appreciated was the fact that they got back to playing cricket. They got back to doing something they love. And yeah, so I think that was a huge fillip for everybody. A lot of the people had been off cricketing action for an extended period of time. So, when we hit the ground, we sort of hit the ground running, so to speak, because everybody was like pumped up and keyed up to do well in the tournament. So yeah, I think this is probably rates as one of the best IPLs ever. And even from a cricketing standpoint, I think the teams were also fairly evenly matched, and the quality of cricket was tremendous. And that was kind of displayed towards the latter stages of the tournament where you weren't really sure about who was actually going to make it. So I think it was a rip-roaring success, and it was a lot of hard work. But from a personal standpoint, like you alluded to, Delhi Capitals made it to the final, had its best ever season. So it was really gratifying from that standpoint.
Sounds really intense, that. And yeah, I must say, listening to all of it increases my respect for all those who made it possible, especially those cricketers who rose above the occasion and excelled and put a smile on the faces of people with their performances, in a time when it was desperately needed. I mean, these are extraordinary times, and a great tournament. Actually, I know my father was waiting for the IPL. He in fact watched Caribbean Premier League just because he was so bored, and he just wanted to watch good cricketing action. And then the IPL came, and for 2 months he was absolutely glued to the television. So yeah, thanks to everyone involved for bringing the action to us and giving us a lot to cheer about. Time to tell the listeners a bit about why I have you here. So, beyond all the IPL and the big positions that Mr. Bhashim holds, he is an encyclopedia of cricket, a cricket quizzer par excellence. And if you are a cricket quizzer, just ensure you do not cross paths with this man because he'll tear you apart with a gentle smile. And if you are a quizmaster, which I had been on one occasion with him as a participant, I can tell you that he's not going to let anything go past him and make you feel absolutely helpless on occasions. And this is exactly the reason I am really looking forward to hear you talk about your favorite photographs from cricket. I'm sure they're going to be accompanied by lots of memories, anecdotes, something that one can expect from a man of your knowledge. So the floor is yours, Srinath. Tell us about the fifth photo on the list of random cricket photos that make you happy that you would like to tell our listeners about.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Amit. You were talking about that instance when you were a quizmaster in the Barefoot Cricket Series, and I remember that with very fond memories because I think I've always looked forward to your quizzes because they're not really stats based, and you tend to make the questions about interesting anecdotes and stories, and you try to make the questions workoutable. So I must say kudos to you as well. Yeah, one of the best cricket, if not the best cricket quizmaster whose quizzes I've attended. Now, coming to the photos, it's really difficult to actually pinpoint and choose just 5 photos. Cricket is a game that, you started watching from such a young age, and there's so many memories associated with your process of actually experiencing the game, watching the game, and playing the game. So, what I've tried to do is actually pick moments or photos that have some personal relevance and personal memories to me. That's what I've largely tried. So talking about the fifth photo, this picture needs no introduction. I think this was the test match that broke a million hearts in the late 90s. This is the moment where the crowd in Chepauk gave the Pakistani team a standing ovation after they'd won the first test of a fairly historic series because Pakistan was touring India after a long time. This was the first match that I actually watched live in a cricket ground. So it's got really special memories for me. And I'm sure any cricket fan would relate to this experience of just walking into the stadium with bated breath. And then when you walk up the stairs and you see the pristine greens of the outfield, it really is something that stays etched in your memory. And what a test match it was, Amit. With so many high points. There was a century from Afridi, Venkatesh Prasad, which kind of bowled out Pakistan in the second innings. There was the ball that Wasim Akram bowled to Rahul Dravid, one of the great balls of all time. If I were to think about it, I was sitting somewhere on the square. There's one memory that sticks out is when Sachin was playing a masterclass, and there's a rasping cover drive that he played, and then Ijaz Ahmad I think was fielding at that point. Then after he played that shot, he kind of looked at the crowd and he pointed at Sachin and made the thumbs up sign saying what an amazing player. So that was the effect Sachin Tendulkar had even on his opposition players. Everybody had so much respect for him. I think it so happened that the Pakistan team decided impromptu to do a victory lap. And before you realize what was actually happening, you could see the entire ground get to its feet and applauding the Pakistani team. People talk about the knowledgeable Chennai crowd, right? I mean, they've always been spectators who've not been very partisan, who've appreciated good cricket irrespective of who it is coming from. That was really a goosebump inducing moment when the entire Pakistan team was taking its victory lap and we were all up on our feet, applauding the Pakistani team. Yeah, I mean, it just added gravitas to what was a historic moment. This is definitely a story, I can tell my grandkids at some point of time that, I was a part of the crowd that actually gave the Pakistanis a standing ovation. In fact, I remember Wasim Akram mentioning on a show later on that this could very well have been, in Karachi or Lahore. For a moment, he could have just been transported to one of those grounds in Pakistan. And that was the kind of response the Pakistani team got in Chepauk. So yeah, this is a test that will be a part of folklore. What a fine knock from Sachin Tendulkar, and it's just unfortunate for him to be on the losing side. And I still remember like being heartbroken after that game, given that it was my first game and stuff. Obviously, India ended up winning the second test, but such a tough experience to be a part of.
Absolutely. If it was me, I would not actually get out of the bed for at least 2 days. And yeah, for anyone who was young and to have been part of that crowd, to have witnessed such a special Sachin knock, and to see that end up in a losing cause must have been heartbreaking. But talking about this moment, this particular capture, such a great moment in the history of the game. And I think had it come in an Ashes, we would have kept hearing about it even now. But even then, such a special moment from a very special match and special effort from Sachin Tendulkar. Those who do not know much about the match or the series, I would highly recommend that you catch this documentary that was made on this series, which is available on YouTube. You just have to type 1999 India-Pakistan cricket documentary. Remember, this happened few months before the Kargil war, and all the good that was achieved by this series on the field, it just went to waste because the war meant another halt in India-Pakistan cricket ties. But well, before that happened, we witnessed one of the better cricket matches. I think as you know, as a Sachin fan, this is one innings along with that 175 he scored in Hyderabad against Australia in an ODI in a losing cause once again, which I cannot watch the highlights of because it is heartbreaking to see how close he brought the team and how we lost the plot from there. It would always remain one of those matches, those innings that I would appreciate a lot. I've seen the highlights once, but no, I cannot bring myself to see it again because of the magnitude of the heartbreak.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I can't get myself to watch the highlights of the game. But one thing I repeatedly revisit on YouTube is section after Pakistan win and they're doing the victory lap. You know, this really nice segment on YouTube where they've captured that moment, and it has Harsha Bhogle on air talking through the entire standing ovation, and he talks about the whole experience so well. I would definitely recommend people to go to YouTube and watch that. No better person than Harsha Bhogle to talk through that special moment. You know, just exemplified what cricket can do. You know, getting applauded for their efforts. Fantastic moment.
Moving on, which photo would you like to talk about next?
The second photo is also one of those memorable games from a really memorable series. Probably ranks as probably one of the best series that India has been a part of. And again, this has personal memories associated with me, which is why I picked this. This was the decider played between India and Australia at Chepauk in 2001. It was a historic decider to a historic series. I mean, what a series that was. The tone was set by what really happened in Kolkata. I don't need to really talk about what happened there. I mean, what a spectacular turnaround that was for India. And the stage was really set for a cracker of a decider. And no, India had actually broken an unbeaten streak that Australia had. And that Aussie team was one of the best ever, really dominant. And the circumstances in which we turned things around in Kolkata, it really heightened the excitement for everybody looking forward to the decider in Chepauk. So as is, so the stage was all set for like a humdinger of a game. And the reason I picked this game, Amit, is that I clearly remember that we just had one ticket, uh, and it was between me and my brother. We had to choose between the two of us who had to actually go and watch the game. And I remember the first day, if I'm not mistaken, was March 18th, 2001, which was a Sunday. So obviously, because we had school on weekdays, we really, both of us really wanted to go and watch the first day. And we had like extensive arguments about it, you know, bickered over it. Obviously, both of us were mad cricket fans, and especially after what happened in Kolkata, there was no way in hell we were going to miss the game. And obviously, if you missed watching the first day, there was a chance that you couldn't get to see the test because you know you had school on weekdays. So finally, as is usually the case, Amit, as the elder brother, I had to relent. I had to let him go and watch the game. We had this deal that I would let him go and watch the game on Sunday, and if at all there was a chance for me to go at a later stage, then it would be me who would go and watch the game. He thought he had struck a great deal, so he went and watched the game on day one. Unfortunately for him, Australia were absolutely dominant on day one, and they were hitting the Indian bowlers to all parts of the ground. If I'm not mistaken, I think they ended up the day scoring 300 plus for the loss of 3 wickets. And Hayden scored a brilliant century. So you had to go and witness Australia really dominating the Indian attack. People talk about the Kolkata test a lot, but even the Wankhede test, the first test, and the third test, they were classic tests in themselves. I mean, the Wankhede test, you saw Australia being in a bit of trouble, and they were really rescued by both Hayden and Gilchrist, and what centuries they were in. Obviously, you got to witness a couple of sparkling 50s from Sachin Tendulkar. People don't talk about that test as much. And the same with this test. I think Australia were in a completely dominant position at the end of day one, and yeah, what a turnaround it was on day two. You know, Harbhajan kind of bundling them out, and then you got to witness another epic century from Sachin. I mean, Sachin had a love affair with Chepak. He typically tended to do well. Obviously, I couldn't get to watch. My brother went on day one. I couldn't go on the subsequent days. And then the stage was set on the final day where it looked like the game would head to a result. And I think it was a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And I might have had a test as well. But I was like, hey, there's no way in hell I'm missing this game. I actually bunked school and ended up going to the game and watching it. And what a day it turned out to be. I mean, just fantastic. I mean, I think India was set a target of about 155. It was always going to be a tricky chase because day 5 wicket and the quality of bowling that Australia possessed, it was not going to be easy. But I think the half century from Lakshman Bhai kind of steadied the nerves. You know, we got to a stage where it looked like we were going to get home comfortably. And then I think we lost Sachin, Dravid, Dada and Lakshman Bhai like in quick succession. There was a lot of nerves around the ground. And I think we had around 20 runs to get when Sairaj Bahutale got out. Somehow, you know, everybody was on tenterhooks at that point of time. And it was only apt, I would say, that, you know, Harbhajan hit the winning runs in that game. And what a fantastic series he had 32 wickets and 15 wickets in that game. I think that was a seminal test also from the standpoint that it kind of set the tone for a lot of what we saw from India, a lot of our confident performance that we saw later in that decade. And I think it was also fairly early days in Dada's captaincy. And I think India gained a lot from that series and a lot of confidence that was drawn from the fact that you came back from that kind of an improbable situation and, you know, turned things around and ended up beating a really strong opposition like Australia.
With that 1999 heartbreak, I think it's only fair that a couple of years down the line, you got a match where you could be so happy about the result because this was Australia, this was the big series. This seemed like a lost cause at the end of day 3 in Kolkata, and then this turnaround must have been heartwarming for any Indian cricket fan, and especially one who endured that heartbreak of Chennai 1999. So I'm so glad that you got to witness it, and I think at least 5 people have picked this one as, you know, one of the photos that they look back at fondly, and that tells so much about the importance of this moment in the history of Indian cricket. Such an amazing test match and ushered in an era where Indian cricket grew from strength to strength, and so much of success that has been achieved in the subsequent years. Who knows what would have happened had it not been for that series, because quite possibly Sourav Ganguly would have been done away with had it not been for that extraordinary win against Australia. As you put it, it's quite apt that it was Harbhajan Singh who hit the winning runs because he made it his own. He made that series as his own with 32 wickets. Great series. I was so happy to have witnessed India defeat Australia because at that point of time, it was just impossible to see the likes of Waugh, McGraw even looking defeated. You know, they were so supremely confident that that body language almost drowned you.
Just one more point there, not to forget Samir Dighe as well.
Yeah.
He was at the other end.
And it was his debut match.
Yeah, it was his debut match. And another interesting part about the series is that India fielded a different left-arm spinner in each of the 3 tests. I think Rahul Sangvi played the first test, Venkatapati Raju played the second test, and I think that ended up being his the last game that he played for India. And the third test was played by Nilesh Kulkarni. So that was fairly interesting. And even Sairaj Bortoli was playing his first game of the series. Such an interesting series. And like you rightly said, I think everybody played their role in making India achieve that memorable win.
Next photograph,
Yeah.
which one would you like to talk about?
This is another historic game, Amit. This is probably ranked as my favorite game that I've witnessed live on TV of all time. And again, there is a personal story attached to this game. This is obviously the decider between South Africa and Australia in the five-match ODI series that they played in 2006. And this is that epic game where South Africa managed to chase 434 to win the series. The personal memory that I'm talking about is I actually had my cat interviews around this point of time. I distinctly remember that I had an interview to attend the next day. So I had like imposed this. I had the self-imposed embargo on myself to actually not get distracted watching cricket. I was trying to just hit the books and focus and not watch any live cricket. And it was really tough actually not watching this game because that series in itself was a fairly closely contested and high quality series. It was 2-2 at the end of 4 games, and this was the decider being played at the Bull Ring. So would have definitely liked to watch the whole game, but I kind of imposed an embargo on myself. I said I'm not going to watch it. Just hit the books, and I was in my room. At the end of first innings, I remember my dad was actually watching the game, and he came into my room and he was like, Australia. He told me Australia scored 434. I nearly fell off my seat, and I was like, wow, I missed a chance to watch what was really a historic innings. I mean, you couldn't imagine anybody scoring 434. I mean, it still remains a sort of a freak match, right? You've not seen 400 plus games happen too often after that. Then I told myself, okay, maybe I would follow the score online. I still tried to resist the temptation to go and watch the game, and my dad was watching it. Yeah, at around 20 over mark, I checked the score, and I think South Africa was really going for it. At that point of time, I decided there's no way that I'm going to miss watching what could turn out to be a fairly historic game. So I just left my room and watched the rest of the game, and I definitely was not disappointed. I think that's one of the best decisions I took because I wouldn't have forgiven myself for having missed that game. Just what a game it turned out to be. I mean, so many memories from that game. I think in the chase, I think one thing that kind of played out well for South Africa was Botha Dippenaar getting out a little early. No disrespect to him, but he was more of a steady sort of a player,
Yes.
and that kind of set the tone for Herschel Gibbs to come on to the stage and do what he did. I mean, such a prodigiously talented and gifted player. He's somebody who's capable of churning out such knocks. What a knock that was from Herschel Gibbs. I mean, I just was staggered by how they kept attacking both him and Graeme Smith in that partnership. And as is the case with such games, Amit, after Gibbs got out, there was going to be a twist in the tail because such games are filled with such drama, and South Africa lost AB and Kalis for not a lot. I think one very underappreciated element of that game was that cameo from Johan van der Walt. I think he scored a 35 of quick time in 18 balls.
Yeah.
I think that kind of reinfused some momentum into the South African innings. Shared a crucial partnership at that point, I think, with Mark Boucher. That was a really crucial knock in the context of that game. The other memories from that game, Amit, are obviously Nick Lewis, his most expensive spell in ODIs. I think he went for 113 and 10. I think Nathan Bracken picked up a
5-wicket haul.
5-wicket haul. Unfortunately, ended up on the losing side. And obviously, there is that famous quote from Kalis. I don't know if this is actually true, but he's supposed to have said that, they were 15 runs under par for that wicket and they can chase it down. Still remains one of the best one-liners I've heard, if it actually really happened at the break. He's supposed to have said that Australia was 15 runs under par and they could chase it. And Joburg is one of those grounds, Amit, where a lot of records tend to get broken. think it's
Yeah.
at altitude, so the ball tends to travel. So it's like the South African equivalent of the Chinnaswamy,
Hmm.
a batting paradise. Ball tends to travel at altitude. So it is one of those grounds where such freak matches can happen. And I think it's seen a few historic games. I think AB scored his fastest ODI 100 in Joburg as well.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, so it's one of those grounds where you tend to see, records get broken. But I mean, what a freak game this was. I mean, you never seen anything like this after that. And the other thing is, obviously, you had to commend the effort that Australia put in with the bat as well. I mean, to score 434, Ricky Ponting scored 164. Been lucky enough to get to know him later in life while working with him in Delhi Capitals. He used to be one of my favorite cricketers. So I quickly went back and saw the highlights as well. So yeah, I mean, what a game that turned out to be. And obviously, this was the winning moment where Mark Boucher hit Brett Lee, right? Brett Lee down the ground for a four.
Yeah.
I could just remember the emotions. I think even the raw emotions in the ground, people really couldn't believe what had happened, and easily qualifies to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest ODI played. And I know that you being a purveyor of trivia, I have a question to ask you on this. So Amit, do you know who won the man of the match in this game?
Man of the match was no, I can't seem to remember really.
So the man of the match, interestingly, was shared between Herschel Gibbs and Ricky Ponting.
Ah, okay.
So I feel Herschel Gibbs can feel a little hard done by. That knock deserved to be a standalone man of the match. So for
Yeah.
some reason, the adjudicators decided to make it a shared one. I mean, taking nothing away from Ricky's knock, which was a special knock in itself, but to score 175 in under that kind of pressure, chasing an improbable target, I think it just deserved to be man of the match standalone.
Gibbs also has admitted that he went out drinking the night before and he was quite drunk when he hit those runs. So it was special in many ways. The fact that it came in that match and the fact that it came in that mindset. But yeah, as you said that it is one of the greatest matches, greatest ODIs. I would like to ask you one thing because it's a debate that I have had with a few people. If you were to ask to pick the greatest ODI, and if you're given the three options, one is this match, the other is the 1999 World Cup semi-final Australia South Africa, and the New Zealand England World Cup final in 2019. Which one would you be inclined to pick as the greatest ODI, or is there any left field choice that you have?
That's a really tough question, Amit. I mean, it's so difficult to pick between these three games. I'd say that you cannot look beyond these three games. I think most people would agree that
Yeah,
it would have to be one
it
of these
it
three.
narrows
Yeah,
down to these three for me as well. But I can never make a call out of these three that this is the greatest because
correct,
all these matches had so many things happening, and of course you cannot compare a World Cup final to a bilateral series final. But then not every day
correct,
434 gets chased down. So yeah, what would you say about it?
correct, correct. So, like you rightly alluded to, Amit, I think just the context of that game being a World Cup final, I think it would slightly pip. I mean, obviously, you're talking about a World Cup semi-final as well, the first game at Edgbaston. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that it was the World Cup final in such a big occasion, and for us to have witnessed the super over in a World Cup final, I think that would slightly pip, the other two games. I guess the context of of it being such an important game would lend it a little bit more significance and importance. But having said that, uh, how often? I mean, even after, I mean, that was way back in 2006 when this 438, 434, 438 game happened. How many
Yes.
times have you seen something like that be replicated? It was a complete freak, right? Complete
Y-
freak game.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
so,
true.
so just to witness something like that, just you know, uh, left you awestruck. So that's my first reaction. Like after watching the game, I still couldn't believe my eyes. The fact that the team could actually score 434 and somebody actually had the audacity to actually chase it down. I think it's a completely improbable event. So yeah.
Very true.
So yeah, bottom line, I'd probably stick with the World Cup final just because of uh, how important a game it was.
Hmm.
But only slightly ahead of the 4:30th game.
Yeah, I think the fact that this match didn't have this pitch didn't have anything for the bowlers, and which is of course
Correct.
evident through the scorecard, that tilts the favor. That tilts the scale in favor of the World Cup final for me as well, because it was an even contest between bat and ball.
Absolutely.
And yeah, fair enough.
Absolutely.
Which photo comes
And the
next?
same with the semifinal.
Y-
The same with the semifinal in Edgbaston as well, right?
Yeah, 213.
It was an even contest. Yeah, so it was an even contest between bat and ball. So you're absolutely right. Uh, so cool. The next photo, Amit, is a photo that's really close to my heart. Not got to do with international cricket, but as we briefly spoke about at the beginning of this podcast about the recently concluded IPL, this is a team photo, Delhi Capitals, and this is something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Like I was saying, the world went through so much and is still going through so much over the last 8 9 months, and you were really unsure about how things were going to transpire. Just to pull off an event of the scale of the IPL amidst the pandemic, to move to another country, and all the hard work that went behind the scenes to pull it off, it's just fantastic. Just kudos to everybody involved, and like you rightly said, it gave so much happiness to everybody back home in India as well, amidst fairly depressing circumstances. And yeah, I mean, there's so much of support also from the players and support staff, because it really wasn't easy to be in a bubble for such an extended period of time. You spend close to 80 days in a bubble, and you're in a constrained space, and it can get you, it can be a mental challenge. But everybody was so supportive, and the tournament went through without any major hiccups. Even from a cricketing standpoint, it's probably one of the best IPLs that we've seen in recent memory, because how evenly matched the teams were, and it went till the last game. So memorable event. And from a personal standpoint, Delhi had a great season, made it to the finals for the first time, the best ever finish in the history of the franchise. And the thing that I cherished the most from these 3 months, Amit, that we spent in UAE, was that because you were spending extended periods of time with each other, and you really didn't have the option to go out, you really got to form very meaningful relationships with a lot of the players and support staff and fellow management. Some of these friendships and mateships, I'm sure will, I will carry forward for many years to come. So those are striking memories that I have from the recently concluded IPL.
I think Delhi, over the past couple of years, it has become a team that is difficult to not love. It's a bunch of young talented cricketers with a very amazing coach in Ricky Ponting, and the success they have managed in the past couple of seasons, it has been a heartwarming story for a lot of people, considering the kind of performance they had given in the first 10 years of IPL. And whatever we saw of the team on the TV screens, it gave a very rosy picture of people enjoying each other's success and sharing a great camaraderie. That particular moment that sticks out in my memory is when Rishabh Pant just sneaked into the camera frame when Ponting was interviewed. And it was such a sweet little moment. It just told about an environment where player is not really looking at the coach with sort of a halo on him. Okay, so he can play around a bit, he can be funny, and yeah, it just gave a sense that it's a team that's enjoying its cricket. So its success really made a lot of people happy. It's not just about the supporters of Delhi Capitals, but just people who love cricket, who love the IPL, having known the trajectory that the Delhi franchisee has followed over the years. The past 2 seasons, it's been fantastic watching them play.
Yeah, absolutely, Amit. And like you rightly alluded to, I think we had a great bunch of youngsters, a lot of people under the age of 25. And, there's a lot of good natured banter happening around the team all the time. And yeah, and we had some really fun senior cricketers as well. So it really, ensured that there was a very healthy atmosphere around the team. And of course, Ricky Ponting, is a legendary coach, and he's so good in ensuring that the atmosphere was good, because we were already going through a lot of pressure, staying in a bubble and all of that. So it was important to ensure that there was that camaraderie within the team.
All right, then. Last of the list.
Yes.
Talk us through this one.
The last, yeah, this is again a very special photo. This was taken after we Sunrisers had won the IPL in 2016. This was in the dressing room immediately after we had won the tournament in Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore. See, the IPL is definitely one of the toughest tournaments to win, because there are 8 really strong teams, each of them looking to win the tournament, and each of the teams has so many match winners, high quality players, that it's really tough to actually do consistently well in the league phase. And then once you qualify from the league phase, the playoffs is a different tournament. That's the way a lot of us like to put it. The playoff is a different tournament in itself, because everything that you've done before doesn't really matter, and it's about peaking at the right time. And I think another thing about the IPL is the salary cap really ensures that the teams are evenly matched. Yeah, this is a memorable photo. You can see me there, you know, peeking peeking through right next to Trent Bolt, and such great memories from that tournament with Sunrisers. Amit, I think talking about the final in itself, I think we were playing RCB in their backyard in Chinnaswamy, and obviously the entire crowd was going to root for, who they were going to root for. And Virat Kohli was actually having a phenomenal season at that point of time. He ended up scoring 973 runs, and Chris Gale was also in tremendous form. So I think one thing that sticks out for me from that game is just the decision from the think tank and David Warner to actually win the toss and bat first. Historically, especially at that point of time, Chinnaswamy was a batting paradise, and it was a chasing ground. Most teams would win the toss and opt to chase, but sort of went against the grain because it was a big final. And what a decision that turned out to be. Ended up putting runs on the board, and as the old adage goes, I mean, runs on the board is worth its weight in gold and adds to scoreboard pressure. And that's exactly what happened. Of course, we did have plenty of nervous moments in RCB's chase. I think Virat Kohli and Chris Gayle got out to a fantastic start. In fact, at one stage, they're looking like they were going to coast home. And then there was sudden switch in momentum. Even before that, I think during our batting innings, I think David Warner led from the front. He also had a phenomenal season with the bat. I think he scored close to 850 runs, only eclipsed by another freakier season by Virat Kohli. And then Yuvraj Singh played a very crucial cameo. But the turning point in that match was uh, definitely the innings played by Ben Cutting right at the back end. I think that gave the finishing kick and enabled us to finish above 200, because anything below that would have been subpar. Yeah, he scored a 39 of 15. I think he scored 24 or 25 runs in the last over. That kind of, enabled SRH to carry forward the momentum in the bowling innings. And of course, RCB were looking good at one stage and then ended up losing quick wicket. We had a really strong bowling attack at that point of time. I think the underpinning of our success was a really strong bowling attack. We had drafted Mustafizur Rahman, who was an absolute revelation in that tournament. He ended up winning the emerging player of the tournament that year. And Bhuvneshwar Kumar as well was in fantastic form. We had a lot of left arm pacers, also had a lot of left arm. So the mantra for that season was dubbed left is right for Sunrisers. And it kind of made a difference, because left armers, with their ability to swing the ball, quality left armers like Ashish Nehra, Barinder Stan, and of course Mustafizur Rahman with this off cutter which people couldn't really play or pick. Uh, and of course contributions from Yuvraj Singh in the playoff against Kolkata and against RCB, and then other all-rounders shipping in Moses Hendricks, Ben Cutting, and not to forget a cameo played by Bipul Sharma in the
Vipul
playoff
Sharma,
against
yes.
Gujarat Lions. Yes, and he also actually got the crucial wicket of AB de Villiers in the final. That kind of
Yes.
changed the game as well. Barinder Saran got Virat Kohli bowled. So everybody had chipped in. So it's a complete team performance, and of course it doesn't get sweeter than winning the IPL tournament. I mean, it's such a tough tournament to win. So yeah, this will probably be one of my sweetest memories.
Wonderful. I mean, I love the photo. There's so much happiness and joy in the foreground. But what I can't help but notice is Kane Williamson right at the back, being well, not so Kane Williamson. And yeah, as someone who has seen him from close quarters, just tell us what kind of an individual he is and how much of that reflects in his leadership. And before you answer that, I would like to ask the same question about David Warner as well, because both of them are very interesting characters, and every time they have been given the opportunity to lead Sunrisers, they've done extremely well. So tell us a bit about these two Trans Tasman giants who have been such an important part of the SRH story.
Absolutely. Talking about Kane Williamson first. Kane Williamson is genuinely one of the nicest guys I've had the chance to meet. One of the nicest cricketers around. I mean, you can't talk highly enough about how polite and well mannered and how much of a gentleman that he is. And a lot of that is what you see on the field. I mean, think about the World Cup final. You're going through such a nerve-wracking time. You've just lost a match in such a dramatic fashion. I just couldn't believe how calm he was after all of that. I mean, it's just incredible. I was losing my mind back home. For somebody to be that calm, it's just fantastic. I mean, it's such a calm, helpful person, and such a sharp cricketing brain as well. Like you rightly alluded to, did such a great job in 2018. I mean, SRH made it to the final, and yeah, David Warner again. What a inspirational character. I mean, as a captain, he used to lead from the front. He's probably one of the greatest batsmen that IPL has ever seen. I think he's had a streak of 500 plus tournaments starting 2014, which is phenomenal. And I still remember that tournament in 2016. He's leading from the front and such a great captain in terms of the strategizing, in terms of giving bowlers their freedom to set their fields. I think he was probably the biggest reason for us to win the tournament in 2016, and obviously with the bat as well, he had a phenomenal season. We're lucky to have, like you rightly said, these two Trans Tasman giants in our squad right now, and been a pleasure knowing both of them.
It's such a beautiful thing about the IPL. I mean, this is exactly what you love about the IPL, that Kane Williamson, David Warner, such different characters from countries that are traditionally rivals, but then they come together to play for the franchisee, and they've done so well. Okay, so those were the 5 photos that Srinath Basham talked about with much fondness, with a lot of memories, personal, so many of them. Now comes the final section, the final segment of this podcast, which we call The One That Got Away, where we ask our guests about a photograph that hasn't been captured, but it was a moment that they possibly witnessed or would have liked getting captured in a photograph. So, Srinath, tell me about that photo or that moment that you wish was there, captured as a photograph, but isn't there right now.
This is again a moment, Amit, which has a little bit of personal relevance to me. This is from way back. So this is the first ever ball that is bowled in Ranji cricket. That was bowled in Ranji cricket. It was bowled by M.J. Gopalan to Curtis. It came between Madras and Mysore way back in 1934. So the reason I would have liked to have seen this captured is M.J. Gopalan was a relative of mine. So he was a grandfather of my cousin. So I distinctly remember when I was a kid, I used to keep going to his house. I used to see this tall, lanky, elderly gentleman, in his house. And I would see photos of him dressed in blazers, framed photos of his. And I used to wonder who this was. I mean, little did I realize at that point that here was this gentleman who's actually not only played for his country as an international cricketer, but he's a double international who's also played hockey. I don't know if the technology could have allowed for. I'm sure there would have been like the technology of photography at that point. I'm sure, but I've tried looking for it online. I'm not really sure if this moment has been captured. The first ever ball bowled in Ranji cricket, bowled by M.J. Gopalan, who's my cousin's grandfather, and just a little bit about MG Gopalan. I think people know that he represented India in cricket and hockey. There's a very famous story that he actually had a choice in 1936 to either tour England to play the cricket series or possibly go to Berlin as a part of the hockey team to play with Dhyanchand and the other luminaries. And I'm pretty sure he would have known that he would have been assured of a gold medal if he had gone to Berlin. But I don't know exactly how it panned out, but he ended up going to England. And unfortunately, I don't think he got a chance to play. And it's a fairly infamous story, Amit, in terms of Lala Amarnath being sent back home midway, with the idiosyncratic captaincy of Gizzy. So I don't know. I've never really had the chance to speak to him, and little did I realize at that point of time when I was a kid about the person that he was. But I would definitely like to ask him more about his experiences and the choice he made to actually tour England. And of course, the permanence of Mr. M.G. Gopalan's place in Indian history was established with the annual tournament between Ceylon and Tamil Nadu being named after him. But I think that tournament kind of lost its importance because after that Sri Lanka became a test playing nation and it really sort of petered out. I think the last edition was played in 2007. I think when R. Ashwin actually led Tamil Nadu against not the Lankan team but a motley crew of under 19 and 18 players. So I would have liked to seen this photo, historic photo of the first ball bowled in Ranji cricket.
Wow, what a fantastic cricketing connection to have. I mean, now I'm not surprised where all this love for cricket comes from. Now I'm not surprised where how you are in cricket and yeah, so much of cricket that is possibly flowing in your blood. So that's amazing. And I thought I would add that trivia to for our listeners, but you added it already. MJ Gopalan Trophy played
Correct,
between Ceylon and Tamil Nadu, and for more than 50
correct.
years. And yeah, well, that's some cricketing connection to have. I'm pretty sure it's not a well-known fact, but I hope more and more people get to know that the Sunrisers Hyderabad general manager, is that general manager, general director?
General manager, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, is
yeah.
related to the man who bowled the first ball in the history of Ranji cricket, MJ Gopalan, and also played hockey for India. Sports is
Right.
there in the family then.
No, so when you grow up in Chennai, Amit, you grow up in a milieu of cricket. Everybody eats, sleeps, breathes cricket. I had a bunch of cousins who played the game. Used to go for coaching. My dad was a cricket tragic in himself. He used to take pride in waking me up early in the morning. Watching games played in Australia. So I'm not surprised that I was bitten by the bug, and I'm fortunate enough to be working in a field that I'm so passionate about.
Well, let's hope that this continues, and probably someone in the family will, live up to the MJ Gopalan name and probably play for India. I hope that happens.
Yeah, hope so. Hope so. I mean, I have a daughter. I mean, I've already started brainwashing her. She's 5 years old. She watches. I make her watch a lot of the cricket matches with me. So
So
I
she's
I
under
don't know.
the
I
right
wouldn't.
under the right guidance, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I'd like her to take up any sport, but it'll be special if it's cricket, and especially with women's cricket really, really growing to what it is today. I think it is definitely a career one can think seriously about.
Well, fingers crossed. Let's hope that works out. And yeah, MJ Gopalan cricket legacy lives on. So thank you so much, Srinath. Thank you so much for giving us your time. That was a great list. Those were some great stories to listen to. Uh, Great luck with the IPL 2021. So glad that you're back with the franchisee, that you feel like it's your home, and we are waiting to see some exciting cricket, and would love to see David Warner and Kane Williamson do absolutely brilliant this season as well. So thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amit, for having me on your podcast. And I must say that I mean, I started following the Twitter handle very actively, and it's great to see somebody so passionate and knowledgeable about the game. Yeah, I just must say that please keep it going, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you